What is up, Regigigas fans? My name is Eben, and I am bringing you my Oklahoma State Championships deck. It's pretty much the same one I was running from Texas, so I won't belabor this. You can check out my channel just by clicking on my image below. You can find my Texas State Champs deck. It is a much more detailed going into the deck as than what I'm going to do today. I only changed out 2 cards from my experiences at Texas State. It didn't quite make it, but a lot of the matches with this deck are kind of close, and I had a little bit of rough luck on just various things. It didn't quite make it this time around. That's cool. It happens. Did take a little bit of 4th place action at the league challenge the next day, but it was kind of a small league challenge, so I don't really factor that in too much. We did pull 1 Seismitoad EX out of the deck for something else, and we'll see that in a second. We're still running our 3 Manectric EXs, and we're still running our 3-3 line of our Slowkings and Slowpokes to kind of put in the control there. We're still running our 2 Shaman EX because that worked out just brilliantly for us before. No need to change that. That 1 Seismitoad did turn into a Dedenne. Reason being, it's a great way to kind of, when you've been Slowking, moving those energies onto a target, Dedenne is a great way to pick up that knockout in the late game. It's a great Pokemon in that you can potentially pick up those knockouts, and unlike a lot of other things, it doesn't get revenge killed easily, and it powers up for a single energy of any kind, so any energy in the deck makes it happy. That's cool. But in the early game, it's also a great Pokemon because you can use entrainment to, like, say, get your Slowpokes out or find the Toad or the Manectric, whatever it is you happen to want, that you didn't quite get set up with. So it's a pretty solid replacement. I gotta say, it was pretty cool. It even sniped a Giratina EX out for me. That was pretty amazing. So I don't have any complaints about the Dedenne. For the 4th Frog, that was just fine. You don't really need 4 Toads too very much because we're running the 4 Ultra Balls. So we got our 4 Sycamores. That was all still perfectly fine. We switched our Judge out because I found Judge more often than not was just kind of a lackluster draw card in this deck. So I felt like Observations is a 4-card draw on its worst days, but oftentimes can fetch you 7. I just wanted to opt for the draw power a little bit more. You could definitely go Shauna. I've seen a lot more people going Shauna these days, so that could be Shauna if you want. I opted for the Observations, but it can really go either way. We're still running our 1 AZ. We're still running the 1 Lysander, and the Xerosic was just so helpful. I couldn't cut that. A number of people have kind of asked me, really, Xerosic? But yeah, it's just so very good, especially with Fighting Fury belts upswing in popularity. It's definitely worth having. And with that, it's pretty much the same deck. You got your 4 Versus Seekers. I didn't really see anything that really needed to change too very much. 4 Ultra Balls. We got the 4 Trainer's Mail. How you play this deck is very difficult. I'm still kind of learning how to play it. It's not an easy deck to play necessarily. It's pretty straightforward, but depending on your opponent, sometimes there are a lot of critical decisions. But that's true in a lot of Pokemon too. We got our 4 Super Scoop Ups. All this is still pretty straightforward. We got our 2 Headringers. And I did put serious consideration into dropping the Rough Seas here, but at the end, and maybe running, like, let's say Silent Lab in its place. Is there a number of decks we can kind of it can be helpful against? But honestly, I think the Rough Seas are just too useful, and I was anticipating potentially running into Bats. Things like that there, and Bats can be very problematic for Slowking, but Rough Seas pretty much make the Bats all but pointless. So I still retain the Rough Seas, and it can be useful for fighting other things that deal lesser damage. Still at the town map, I still find it to be so useful. Our 1 Super Rod, and our 4 DCEs, our 4 Lightning Energies, and last but not least, our 2 Waters. All that worked out really well before, so I didn't see much reason to change it. All the playtesting just kind of reaffirmed all that. In retrospect, looking back at the deck, notes, thoughts on the deck. The biggest complaint I had in virtually every match is the deck has a lot of control, and it's awesome at that, but it just does not have the damage output that I think is really necessary in this format, because there's so many decks that basically set up in a single turn right now. Especially Night March, whose popularity is just as strong as ever, maybe even stronger than it had been in the past. It's just a terrifyingly fast and efficient deck. And honestly, Seismitoad, even though he can get a lock very reliably on your first attacking turn, I hate to say it, but he's not fast enough to lock Night March. I played match after match against Night March, and that was just sort of the real challenge for us. Is we just can't really deal with it. And once they set up in that single turn, they're dealing 180 or more damage with relative ease. So, I mean, we're just not fast enough. And you can try to move the energies around, but they just have one too many answers, really. And since you've got those EXs they can easily target down, you don't have a lot of time. So soaking isn't enough usually. And the Puzzle of Time variant of the deck that's now out there for Night March is really good at not getting stymied by most control strategies. As they can just fire those off in those first couple of turns, or they can find ways around your Toad, like by blowing it up, so you have to put something else in the active slot and so on. So that's a very problematic matchup for this deck, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's something to consider, and if you see a lot of Night March in your area, then you might want to consider making some alterations to this deck to specifically counter Night March. In fact, that's something I'm going to be approaching this week and next, is actually ways to counter Night March, because it is honestly 85 to 90% of the time going off, on its first turn every game in my experience. And it's just, I mean, when it's piloted right and has a good build, of course, everything like that. But it's a deck that's become so ubiquitous. Now you just you have to be prepared for it. You kind of have to have a specific counter for it, or else it's either a very difficult matchup or a matchup you're just going to straight up lose. Watching the top tables where there's just Night March everywhere is kind of challenging. It was either Night March or like decks that counter it, like Greninja, very specifically. So that said, I really enjoy this deck. I like it, but I think I want to kind of step away from a while and take on things a little more aggressive, because the non-Night March decks, I was having trouble picking up those KOs fast enough to make the difference. So yeah, I think it was still a good deck, and I stand behind it, but as far as everything goes, the lack of damage output was definitely a factor. And I think I'm going to try to change it up, play some different decks, kind of keep it shaken up, do some new things and different things. And I think that's about it for me. So until next time, like, comment, subscribe, check me out on Twitter. Link is below, and I will see you next time.